Good afternoon and welcome to today's wellness program. My name is Claire Varesio. I'm the community librarian at Cupertino Library. We're very pleased to be able to bring this wellness series to you, and I hope you enjoy today's talk. Cupertino Library Foundation is our partner for this series, and I would like to welcome up Gopal Kumarapan, who would like to give a few words about Cupertino Library Foundation.
Thank you, Claire. And I know it's at 2 o'clock, and we didn't know that we were in deep sleep already after a nice lunch. But we thought, no, it's okay, you will come back because to hear from our speaker. So again, my name is Gopal. I'm one of the board members of the Cupertino Library Foundation. One of the key things the foundation does, partnering with the library, is to bring these kind of a wellness series to make sure that we bring awareness. Doesn't matter what level of our education, our age level, but we simply take many things for granted, including the sleep. So we wanted to make sure that we bring it, and even myself included, I don't get enough sleep, but we have our own excuses, either it's work or whatnot. So how do we really take away from the excuses and still get back into a good sleep? And as Claire mentioned, and after that you will follow with the dreams, I was looking into it. Maybe at the end of this session, our speaker will make you all have a nice sleep, and then you will start dreaming as well. So again, we have a Henry here, our board president as well from CLF. So we all partner mainly to make sure that we bring awareness. Like education, the health is so important at the pressureful situation, especially in the Bay Area, especially here. I know how busy we are all, so I really want to make sure that you take advantage of this session, and then I'll hand over back to Claire to introduce the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Gopal. You can learn more about our Library Foundation at their website, cupertinolibraryfoundation.org. Today's speaker is Dr. Rafael Pelayo. Dr. Pillai is a clinical professor at Stanford University School of Medicine in the Division of Sleep Medicine. His focus is the treatment of sleep disorders in patients of all ages. He was recently elected president of the California Sleep Society, and in 2019 was appointed to serve on the board of the National Sleep Foundation. He currently teaches the Stanford University Sleep and Dreams undergraduate course alongside Dr. William Dement. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pelayo.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Claire. Thank you to the foundation. Gopal, I just met you. I appreciate it. It's really nice here. I've never been to this library. Really nice. I like libraries. They're just nice places to be. We should be lucky we have them. You guys have a nice one here. Can you hear me okay? Is it coming out too soft? I'm not sure it's coming out in the back. You guys should sit in the back for a reason. There are plenty of seats out front, but it's okay. We can talk. It's a little bit different because the screens are on the side here. So I can kind of, I guess, stand here. I could just, no, I can't stand here because the microphone's over there. I'll stand right here then. We'll do it this way. It's Sunday afternoon. This is your time. When they first invited me to speak, he goes, people show up at Sunday afternoon to lectures here? He goes, yeah, they do. Oh, there's a wireless mic. I could do that. So before I start, I want to respect your time. Can you just shout out a little bit? What is it you guys want me to cover? The first time I was ever invited to speak somewhere, I spoke for 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I don't want to do that to you guys today. So anything particular you guys hoping that I discuss or not discuss, wanted me to bring up? Yes, ma'am. Deep sleep. Yes? Sleep better. Yes, in the front and back?
Chocolate and sleep.
What? Chocolate and sleep. You mean sleeping in chocolate, bathe in chocolate? Sounds yummy. Is that what you meant? You know, I've done thousands of talks. Nobody's ever asked me to talk about chocolate and sleep. You're the first one who's ever asked me that. So I'm going to think about you. So I'll have to come up with something on chocolate and sleep. Yes, sir?
Insomnia.
Insomnia. We're going to talk about insomnia right out in the beginning. I like the topic of insomnia to start off with. Sir?
Why do we sleep at all?
Why do we sleep at all?
Yeah.
That's actually what got me in the field. Yes? We'll go over that too. Apnea and dementia. Okay, we're gonna, the way I set up my slides for you guys, and we don't need to use slides at all, but I was gonna talk a little bit of insomnia and sleep apnea as two main topics, but we can switch around to whatever you guys feel comfortable with. Yes, sir? Melatonin on sleep? Okay. Yes, sir?
6 hours sleep, okay?
For who? It depends. How does it feel to you? Feels good, 6 hours? As we get older, maybe 6 hours is enough for some people, but it wouldn't be okay if you were 15 years old. It wouldn't be enough if you were 10 years old. So it's kind of relative. Yeah, both of you ladies, yes. You? You know, the parents often ask, how many hours should my child sleep? And what you really want to know is how many hours can you be away from your child? That's what I think you're really after, because it's the only chance we get to our lifestyles before we were adults, right? Before we were parents, the only chance you get is when the kids are sleeping. So I've said that many times, and if it's a group of adults with parents, they say, haha. If I say that to a group of teenagers, they stare at me blankly. They can't comprehend that you as a parent don't want to be with them at all times. It's hard for them to understand this because that's how we do things. You had raise your hand? So sleep architecture, we talk about that. We're not insomnia. Okay, just one or two, yes? You.
What happens if you don't sleep for 7 days?
7 days? You're going to sleep a lot on the 8th day. That's what's going to happen. Yes. Upper resistance syndrome. The man who coined that phrase just passed away, by the way, about 3 weeks ago, Dr. Gimino, my friend and colleague. Yes? I see you waving. I see you. Yes? It depends what the choices are. Our sleep feels bad for you. Okay, then it depends. All right, so let's just get on with this a little bit. Enough things to go over. Hopefully you're not going to get bored. So these are the sleep disorders we deal with. Why we sleep. The best answer that we have why we sleep is that it's actually restorative. It's something the body has to do. It's like asking why do we breathe oxygen, why do we eat food? Basically, we have to sleep. The world's record for lack of sleep, by the way, is 11 days. Very hard to do. And the Guinness Book of World Records no longer publishes that record because they do not want people to discourage them from doing it. And since you asked me the question, what's your name? Ryan, since you asked me the question, I was thinking, you can look this up on YouTube. They let you use YouTube sometimes? Yeah. There's a magician called David Blaine. And David Blaine tried to do a publicity stunt. He's done all these things where he put himself on a block of ice, he starved himself, he did all these things. He tried to break the world's record for sleep deprivation. And they wouldn't let him do it because they thought it was too dangerous. But there's a video of David Blaine, you don't do this at home, where he actually has a stunt where he gets shot in the mouth and he catches the bullet with his teeth. That's a real thing you guys can see. So getting shot in the face is considered less dangerous than staying awake, apparently. And this is really is true. So the record is 11 days, and it's not clear whether that person really was awake 11 days. He may have been sleeping a little bit in between. But sleep is restorative. One of the earliest sleep scientists said if sleep has no function, it's the biggest mistake evolution ever made. Right? Because think about why we do it, right? If we were to get together now, we're in Silicon Valley. If I were to let you know that at Stanford we got some research going on, and we now have a medication available that's going to make you feel like you've slept 8 hours, but you only need to sleep 4. How many of you would give it a try? A few of you. Not even ask the side effects, right? No, we don't have anything like that. It doesn't exist. We can't really do that. You have to sleep. But if we could create something to replace our sleep, what would be the market for that? How much money would you make off that? Here in Silicon Valley, there's nobody, all kinds of meetings going on, people trying to raise money for all kinds of projects. Nobody's trying to raise money to make a sleeping robot. It wouldn't make any sense, right? It would be ridiculous to do this. It's an interesting idea. We treat sleep like an inconvenience. And I just want you to think a little bit about this. What's the value of sleep in your lives? The research is showing more and more that sleeping will help you feel better. And as a wellness topic, there's probably nothing will ever make you feel better than a good night's sleep. You know that feeling of you've been traveling, been on the road, getting back to your own bed, how nice that feels? It feels good. It feels so good to get back to your own bed. Insomniacs, by the way, sleep better away from home. That's one of the features of insomnia. They sleep better away from home. Most of us sleep better in our own beds, in our own homes. These are the sleep problems that we deal with. I'm a physician. I've been at Stanford now 26 years, taking care of patients full-time with sleep problems. And there's dozens of different sleep disorders, but break it down mostly to different forms of insomnia with an S, because there's different forms of insomnia. We can talk a little bit about that. We can talk about sleep apnea, which is when people stop breathing when they sleep. Sleep apnea is kind of an interesting situation because what happens in obstructive sleep apnea syndrome is the brain has to decide, is it better to sleep or breathe? And the brain decides, I'd rather sleep than breathe. And for a little while, you keep sleeping, but you stop breathing. That's how important sleeping is. The brain actually prefers breathing over sleeping in sleep apnea. And a lot of you have some degree of it. How many of you snore? How many of you know somebody who snores? All of you, come on, right? How many of you have been told by somebody that you snore? Yeah, do you believe them? Yeah. I mean, every day at work, somebody will show up and say, my wife claims I snore. And to this day, the wives are batting 1,000. I've not had a single wife be wrong on this. There's always a truth. And there's all kinds of couples in a relationship, but it typically is the guy snoring more, all kinds of situations. Parasomnias is a fun topic. Nobody really asked me about parasomnia, so we won't spend time on it. But parasomnias are the things that go bump in the night. Sleepwalking, sleep talking, sleep terrors, people acting out their dreams, violence in sleep. I've done some medical legal cases as an expert, court cases where people have been charged with crimes. And I've done expert work for both the prosecution and for the defense on this matter. Restless leg syndrome, nobody asked about it, but there's too many of us in this room not to have somebody with it. Yes, you have it? Cool. Yeah, it's this creepy, crawly feeling that's hard to describe. Urge to move, you have it also. It runs strongly in families, by the way. You have it too, sir? It runs strongly in families. If you have it, it's unlikely that you don't have some other relatives who have it also. And in kids, it's often manifested as growing pains. My training was in child neurology, so I did neurology and pediatrics as a formative process to get into sleep. But my focus has always been on sleep. Restless legs, sometimes confused with growing pains. If you've got kids who have growing pain issues, there may be restless legs. It gets worse in pregnancy. I've met women who say that they know they're pregnant because their legs start to bother them. That's when it starts to flare. And it often mimics attention deficit disorder. Pretty much any of these sleep disorders will mimic ADD. The first symptom of not getting enough sleep is being inattentive and grumpy, being irritable. You guys know anybody who wakes up kind of irritable and has a hard time focusing? That's typical for any sleep disorder. That's why they'll mimic ADD. I see it. I see. If you guys fall asleep, it's okay. I don't mind. It'd be bad if I fall asleep, but some of you look drowsy to me already. The other condition that we won't get into then because I applied much to this audience is narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is kind of an interesting disorder because our entire lives, the entire life, you can summarize in the time you've either been awake, the time you've been dreaming, or the time you've been sleeping but not dreaming. That's all we ever do. We're either awake, we're dreaming, or sleeping but not dreaming. And that's all we've ever done. We've been sleeping longer than we've been eating because babies sleep in utero, but they don't eat till after they're born. That's how long you've been sleeping. So in narcolepsy, what happens is the boundaries between these three states, awake world, dreaming world, and sleeping but not dreaming world, get blurry. So they get sleepy in the daytime, and they also can't sleep at night, and they sometimes start dreaming while they're awake. That's what narcolepsy is. So it's a nice entry into the concept of why do we bother sleeping. Current ideas about why we sleep, it's probably different for different animals. In humans, we think it has a metabolic process to it, that somehow is a cleansing of the brain. There's some ideas now that these metabolites accumulate in the brain, these waste products accumulate in the brain, and that they're flushed out of our brains when we're sleeping. That's kind of a newer idea. It's only been about 5 or 6 years. It's an appealing idea. Not everybody believes it. But the thought of if the brain's an electrical organ, the brain's electric, that if it's running all the time, that there's some waste products that get accumulate and it has to be flushed out. But that's only about the deep sleep. This lady asked over about deep sleep. And deep sleep's only about 10% of the night. So if that what sleep was all about and just that, we can get rid of 90% of our sleep. And it's not going to be that way at all. It's not that way at all. So there's more to it than that. And when people ask about deep sleep, what I always sometimes wonder, what you're really asking is, how can I get better quality sleep? And that's what you're really asking. It may not necessarily be just deep sleep, because light sleep is important also. In fact, yes, ma'am.
Actually, what I meant was, I understand that you get more health benefits if you sleep.
Yeah, because we're recording, let me repeat the question because they may not catch it. You want to know whether you thought there was more health benefits to deeper sleep. Thinking about any specific sleep type or stage as more important than any other is like saying which part of your transmission of your car is more important, which gear, third gear or fourth gear. We think that the overall continuity of the process is what's important. The way we enter sleep, we talk about deep sleep, maybe 10% of the night, dreaming sleep, 25% of the night. The bulk of sleep is intermediate, stage 2 they call it, or N2, 56% of the night. But there's a type of sleep that's often never discussed when you read about sleep. People just kind of pass over quickly. Stage 1 sleep, light sleep. What's the importance of that? Sounds like not important. But light sleep is how we enter our sleep. And all of you seen light sleep countless times, stage 1 sleep. Go to any meeting, any event, the speakers droning on and on. You wish you hadn't shown up. Like, oh my God, what time is it? You know, the clock's not ticking fast enough. You'll see somebody in the room, head nodding, eyes rolling, head drops. If you ask that person, if you nudge them, what's the first thing they say to you? I'm awake. I'm resting my eyes. When you're in stage 1 sleep, you think you're awake when in fact you're asleep. So don't argue. If anybody ever tells you, oh, I think you're asleep, they'll tell you this all the time. People say, oh, people tell me, I ask them, do you take a nap? No, I don't take a nap. What do you do after lunch? I rest. And yeah, but you're sleeping. Or family members know, like, he claims he's not asleep, but I can hear him snoring. In light sleep, stage 1, you're actually sleeping, but you think you're awake. So because of this, people with insomnia, which we're going to talk about a little more in a moment, sleep more than they realize. You're probably sleeping more than you realize, but it's not satisfying. It's very light sleep. So these are the disorders that we deal with. Let's talk about insomnia a little bit. Why? Because insomnia is the most common sleep disorder is probably not getting enough hours of sleep. But if you think of sleep just in hours, you're kind of missing it. Because any sleep problem you can think of has 4 components to it. The amount of sleep clearly is important, but the quality of the sleep is just as important. I took care of a 3-year-old. Let's call him Eric. And I remember Eric because when you talk to children, they give you very clean histories. They're very pure in how they speak to you, if they'll talk to you at all. Usually, like any patient will come in the door and I say, why are you here? And I ask Eric, why are you here? And usually little kids kind of hide behind their parents, or they say to the parents to nudge them to talk for them because they don't want to talk to strangers, and I'm a stranger. But Eric looked me right in the eye and said, doctor, sleeping makes me tired. And I'll never forget that. Sleeping makes me tired. That's what the 3-year-old said. The mother said, I don't know what's wrong. He sleeps more than his friends. Some of his friends have stopped napping. He sleeps more than the other kids, and he's always tired. For Eric, it wasn't the problem with Eric was he had big tonsils. He couldn't breathe at night. The more he slept, the more he was choking, the more tired he would get. So sleeping did make him tired. And once they opened up his throat, his airway, let him breathe more comfortably, tiredness went away, and he felt better. But sleeping should not make you tired. You should not wake up feeling tired. If you wake up feeling tired, something is wrong, right? You don't leave a nice restaurant feeling hungry. Why should you get out of bed feeling tired? That makes no sense at all. So let's talk about insomnia. How do we fix chronic insomnia? How do we fix it? So the second most common sleep disorder, other than not getting enough, is probably insomnia. About 15% of you have insomnia or more. As we get older, it's more common. Women have more insomnia than men. A lot of men have insomnia, but it's much more common in women, especially women after menopause will get a lot of insomnia. These are the sleep stages. We enter our sleep to this light sleep, stage 1. Then we kind of dip into our deepest sleep, which is our delta sleep. There are a lot of curious, weird things about sleep. Sleeping is a paradox. Logic would be for us not to sleep at all. Logic is for us to always stay awake. If you're a hunter and gatherer, if you want to go capture your prey, the best time to capture your prey is while it's sleeping. We're the top predator. There's an inherent vulnerability to sleeping. Sleeping animals can be attacked at any point. So you would think that the top predator would be the animal that slept the least, right? Or no matter how you think about these, God, evolution, natural selection, somewhere along the line, some animal would not show up that did not need to sleep. But we all sleep. Yet when you're sleeping, you're vulnerable to being attacked. It turns out that all animals have ways of protecting themselves while they're sleeping. And we're no exception. And we'll talk about how our brains are set up to protect us while we're sleeping as we go along. So it turns out that humans are most alert about 2 hours before we fall asleep. If sleep was just like gasoline, let's say, just energy, that's all it was. If it was like your car, the gasoline in your car, when does your car have the most amount of gas in it? When it leaves the gas station. You should have, right? If sleep was like that, we should be fully alert as soon as we wake up in the morning. We're not. We have alertness, but we're not as full alertness. We got a little more alertness mid-morning. Then without doing anything, we got a drop in our afternoon, in our alertness. Our predators, think back to what hunts humans in the prehistoric times. That's when they're not around. Days at its hottest, lions and the big cats, they're not attacking. When do they come up? When do they get active? At dusk. So when are humans most alert? At dusk. All of us have a surge of alertness in the evening. It's built into our brains. So gasoline doesn't do that in your car. The fuel gauge doesn't like have less gas and more gas and less gas on its own. It's linear, but sleep is not like that. We have our surge of alertness in the evening. And after we have that surge of alertness, we fall asleep. We get our deepest sleep we can get. So we kind of like, is the coast clear? Now we go deep. Our deepest sleep, our delta sleep, they call it slow wave sleep, is in that first third of the night. So we go from peak alertness to our deepest sleep in a very short period of time. And then we keep oscillating about every 90 minutes, about an hour, every hour, 2 hours, about 90 minutes. We perk awake, make sure everything's okay, and we go back to sleep. Nobody in this room has ever slept through the night. You never have, you never will. Okay, if we really slept through the night, wouldn't the lions and tigers not eat us, get us out of the cave at 3 o'clock in the morning? All humans open their eyes at night several times, look around, everything's okay, we go back to sleep. Just stay awake and watch your partner sleep. You do it too, Ryan. Yes, you do it. Okay? You make sure everything's okay, look around, go back to sleep. You only wake for a few seconds, but all of us wake up throughout the night. And in fact, they've actually looked at this in pre-industrial tribes. They've actually gone into rainforests and looked at these communities, and they know that these people, if they can actually put like little watches on them to record when they're awake and when they're asleep. And if you look at a tribe of them, they go to bed around the same time, and they all wake up around the same time. They start their day. But throughout the night, they're all sleeping at different times, and somebody's awake through all times. And it's been speculated that the fact that when we're older, our older grandmother popping awake at night is actually was good for the tribe. Good for us to be up there. Yes, sir?
You mentioned the hunter-gatherers, predators.
You have notes, sir? You have a piece of paper?
I wrote down my question.
Okay, cool.
Our relationship with dogs and how it may have aided us. Can you comment on how you think it might have aided our evolution through allowing us to sleep deeper and longer with the dogs being awake and we can sleep and they're watching out for predators?
I've actually just wrote about that. I just wrote about that topic. Claire was very kind to say if I want to have any books to bring into you guys. I wrote a textbook for the course I teach at Stanford. I have a textbook. It's called Dementia, Sleep, and Dreams. And it's on Amazon, but I didn't expect you guys to buy a college textbook. That wouldn't be fair. But I do have a book coming out, hopefully in January, called The New Rules of Sleep. And a section I put in, at least in the draft I'm sending to the publisher, I was going to talk about dogs. I don't know if they'll accept it or not. We'll see. But it's an interesting question. Is there any particular reason you asked that question at this moment? Are you curious about the dogs, or you just kind of?
I feel that seems to be a correlation in my layperson's mind.
Yeah. So dogs are the oldest colonized animal. The oldest domesticated animal are dogs. Dogs, compared to wolves, the main difference is they have a different hormone in their brain called oxytocin. Oxytocin is our love hormone. If you've ever, those of you who are mothers, when you're nursing, oxytocin is secreted. It's how you bond. Oxytocin is a very powerful hormone. It's a love hormone. And dogs have a different oxytocin than wolves do. And in fact, they think the best known examples of pure love is a mother for her child, and probably second as a dog for their owner. The oldest animal that we ever domesticated seems to have been dogs. And it goes really far back. And dog sleep is perfect complementary to human sleep, because they're up at night, they watch over you. And there's actually, you can look this up, I think it was on CNN or something, look up my last name. I was quoted on, somebody else did the research, but somebody asked me a question about it. So you'll see Pillai Oh dogs and sleep, it'll pop up if you do a search. I commented, turns out that women sleep better with dogs in the bedroom than men do. But not in the actual bed. But somebody has actually studied this, that women sleep better with dogs in their room. Not with cats, by the way. Cats are a whole different type of animal. But the dogs do it, and I think the fact is that the dogs are symbiotic to humans in the way they sleep. They sleep throughout the night. They don't see well in the dark. I mean, we don't see well in the dark. The dogs sleep better than we do. So I've always thought that perhaps this antagonism classically between cats and dogs may go back to our prehistoric times. The dogs need to protect us from those big cats that could have attacked us. Anyway, thank you for the question. So I'm going to move on. You raise your hand, sir. Somebody want to comment?
I've read actually in many evolutionary times, people slept in two phases, so they were up for a couple of hours in the middle of the night. Is that how well is that accepted?
Sure. There is, what the gentleman's asking about is, there's a French word for this, which I can never get correct, but it means between sleeps, that most of us sleep in spurts. And in medieval times, at least in French, they would write about people who would go to sleep. Imagine you're a peasant or something, you work in the field, you sleep. The night is cooler, you get up, get some work done, and then you go back to sleep. And it's called segmented sleep. If you read about segmented sleep, they discuss this issue. But it's not practical for our society now. I mean, it's hard enough to get people to sleep in a single chunk now. We do it in two spurts. But people do that a lot. Segmented sleep. So the issue, and get back to this issue of insomnia, is waking up is one thing. Waking up is normal. What's the issue is if you're having trouble going back to sleep. People often say to me, my child wakes up every hour. I'm like, well, congratulations. They're supposed to wake up every hour. That's good. You have a healthy child. Oh, no. The problem is when my kid goes to sleep again, I'm awake afterwards. I can't get back to sleep afterwards. So is the problem that your child woke up or the problem that you can't get back to sleep yourself? So where's the problem? So we go through these different stages of sleep. The bulk of sleep was going to be this intermediate sleep. And at the tail end of the night, the very tail end of the night is dominated by our dreaming sleep. You're going to have a lecture on dreams. Dreams are one of the things that fascinated me, that got me into this field. Why we sleep and why do we dream? Kind of the curiosity about the science behind this. Because any hypothesis, any ideas about why we dream get thrown out when we talk, any ideas about why we sleep seem to get thrown out when we talk about dreaming. When we're in a deep sleep, we actually are conserving energy. Our heart rate's at its lowest point, we're breathing very slow. But when we're dreaming, we actually consume more energy. When we're dreaming, our heart rates accelerate. If you have a sedentary lifestyle, many of us have sedentary lifestyles, your peak heart rate is when you're dreaming. The biggest workout your heart gets is probably when you're dreaming. That's when it hits the highest point of the night. And dreams dominate the last third of the night. So it's probably no coincidence that that's also when heart attacks seem to cluster. Heart attacks and strokes cluster in the early morning hours. That's also when we have the bulk of our dreaming sleep. If you think about it, for you to see me right now, I'm reflecting light into the retina. I'm reflecting light into the back of your eyes. But if you would have a dream, God forbid, have a dream about me, right? You got to create that image. It requires more energy to do that. So it's not just that simple. It's actually a very strange thing that we do. Now, current thinking, if we're going to hypothesize a little bit about this, so some of the ideas, is one of the things that we know about dreaming is they're hard to remember, and it's something that's completely impossible for real, completely surreal, we accept as being true at that moment. If half the things happen to you in a dream happen to you in real life, you'd never forget it. Yet, these strange things happen to us in our dreams, and we have to work to remember them. So there's a whole idea that dreams are a way of the brain processing memories. The term REM sleep, you've heard that. That's when we started with REM sleep. The term was coined, rapid eye movement sleep was actually coined by Dr. Dement. Dr. William Dement, my friend. And he's alive, he's 90 years old. He'll be 91 this month. And if you ever want to meet him, he lives on campus, you can meet him. And he called it REM sleep simply because he didn't want to type out. He was a two-finger typist. And he didn't want to keep writing. So he said REM. And then that's what he cared about, was dreaming. So he called it REM. And he didn't care so much about the rest of sleep. He called the rest very kind of disrespectfully, actually, in retrospect, non-REM. So 80% of the night he called non-REM. It's not dreaming. Let's not focus on it. And now we know that non-REM is probably where the bulk of this idea of memory and our brain health is happening, is a non-REM sleep. But the REM sleep is something he described in humans, and they looked back on it and found evidence later of cats doing it. Went further back. When I started my training, we thought that all mammals did it except for the duck-billed platypus and the echidna. And now we know that the echidna, which is an endangered species in Australia, has the most REM of all the mammals, 50% of the time. And just this week, the cover of a journal called Nature has this pretty fish on it. And I was thinking about when I saw the fish tank here, I thought about this. Beautiful fish tank. The cover of Nature, one of the main scientific journals, has these fish on it, parrotfish, because they reported for the first time that fish now have REM sleep also, REM sleep. It's hard to study the fish because they didn't even have eyelids, so I don't know if they're awake or not. But if you look at the fish tank, you'll see that they're still at certain times. So now they have actually figured out a way to measure them. They know that fish now have REM. So it pushes back the evolutionary development of rapid eye movement sleep 450 million years. So it's very possible that the reason that the fish have REM may be very different than the reason that we have REM. Probably not the same thing. And a question that often comes up when we talk about dreaming is, do we have to dream? Is it essential? And the way I've come to think of it is, if you ask a biologist, is dreaming essential? They'll say no, because some people can live their lives without dreaming, right? People can live their lives without dreaming. It's like asking a biologist, is singing essential for life? You don't have to. A lot of us don't sing, right? But in our society, we value singers very much. And certainly we value our dreams in society very much. And when we talk about a good leader, somebody who knows what they're doing, saying, what is your vision? And for you kids out here and your young people out here, how many times is somebody going to tell you some platitude, going to tell you a saying, we want you to follow your dreams. How many times do you tell other people, we want you to follow your dreams? Say that all the time, follow your dreams. And dreams actually dominate the last third of the night. Is this arrow showing up here, the cursor showing up? Yeah. It is? Thank you. If you notice, dreams happen in the last third of the night mostly. So when kids don't get enough sleep, what are we cutting off? Their dreams. All this talk about following your dreams, and we're not letting them dream. We're cutting it off. That's what we're doing to them. We'll talk later. One of the things I've been doing as community outreach is you may have heard about this idea of changing school start times. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but you may have heard this in the news. California might be the first state in the nation to delay school start times for high school and middle school students, public schools. There's a groundswell of volunteers doing this, and I've been one of the people that's been helping with this. So I've gotten to go to Sacramento a couple of times to testify. I was there just a few weeks ago, testifying on behalf of this bill. So if you have time, we'll talk about that. Not to politicize the talk, but it's something that's relevant, what's happening, and why do we want to give our kids a greater chance to sleep.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
What would be the start time if you did that? 2 hour later?
The bill right now, SB 328, if you guys want to look it up, it only establishes the floor. It says middle school cannot start earlier than 8. It could start later, but can't start any earlier than 8. And high schools cannot start any earlier than 8:30. So that's just the floor. The school can decide when it wants to change it to later. It also gives schools 3 years because of school transportation issues to implement it. And it does not stop you from doing optional activities. 0 period. Somebody wants to swim team or something, wants to do something, you can still do that. But the school cannot obligate a child to be sleep deprived, right? If a kid wants to go, parents want to go earlier, that's okay. But you can't force the kids to do this. And the reason is, kids fall asleep a lot in class. We don't see elementary school kids falling asleep in class, right? Any high school kids here? Anybody in high school? Nobody? Any high school teachers here? So, have you ever seen a kid fall asleep in class? Yes. You've seen kids fall asleep in class, right? Did you tell the parents? No. Now, if you're a parent and your kid falls asleep in class, would you like to know? You would like to know if your kid's falling asleep in class. But the kids don't want the kids don't want the parents to know. And I asked the kids why, because they're going to take away our phones. It's the most common answer. They're scared they're going to take away their phones. So anyway, this is the sleep stages. Yes, sir?
You mentioned that the mother who wakes up with a child, she has trouble getting to sleep. Are you going to discuss how can we get to sleep?
Yes, I'll get on with it now. Thank you. If you really think of it, though, how can we be these 8-hour sleeping mammals if we have to feed babies every 2 to 4 hours? Unless we're biologically built to avoid sleeping. And not just women, men do it also, right? And I'm using general terms about men and women. There's all kinds of combinations and ways of thinking about this. So just in general terms, people in combat have to still be able to sleep, right? Your life can be in danger. You still must be able to sleep under those circumstances. And if I ask any of you your sleep needs or sleep desires, you're going to give me 2 numbers. And all of you right now have 2 numbers in your head. How much sleep do you like to get? You'll say something like, well, I like to get 8, but I can get by with 6. I like to get 9, but I can get by with 7. And you start to get by as little as possible in your own mind as you go along. So anyway, just another thing about sleep. Don't equate sleep medicine with sleep studies. If you see a doctor and you tell your doctor, I'm tired, your doctor's reply is, I'm tired too, you're seeing the wrong doctor, okay? You really are. You should not be waking up tired. Sleep medicine now has progressed a lot, and most of the patients I see get better. It's kind of a fun job as far as physicians go. It's unusual for my patients not to improve. So if you're not happy with how you're sleeping and you've talked to your doctor about it and not getting the right answer, see a different doctor. I'm serious about this. There's no reason you should not be sleeping well. I kind of made this point already. We're talking about the amount, the quality of the sleep. What else do we need to know about somebody's sleep? The timing of their sleep. Right? Weekends and weekdays. Kids do a very unadult-like thing. They sleep in a lot on weekends. Little kids don't do that. 7 or 8-year-olds. I know, Ryan, are you sleeping in on weekends a lot? Probably not. Your parents wish you would, but you don't, right? Right? The kids just kind of wake up. That's a very thing they do. And it's because they're sleep deprived. They really are. Monday through Friday, they don't get enough sleep, so they try to catch up on the weekends. And we think, oh, yeah, of course, catching up, of course. That really doesn't make any sense. Biologically, it doesn't make any sense. We don't starve our kids Monday through Friday. Say, hey, you're not going to get no food Monday through Friday. Saturday to Sunday, eat all you like because I'm starving you again starting Monday. But that's what we're doing to the kids, right? It doesn't make any sense. But it's not just kids and weekends. Also, if you're a shift worker, we want to know that. So we think about the amount of sleep, quality of the sleep, timing of the sleep. What do you think is the 4th thing that I want to know if I want to evaluate your sleep? I want to know your state of mind. What does sleeping mean to you? Not just what sleeping means to you, is what does being awake mean to you? Do you live to sleep, sleep to live? What are you getting up for? Waking up is one thing, getting out of bed is something different, right? We wake up biologically, we get out of bed volitionally. If I ask you, all of you, why did you get up this morning when you got up? You all have the same answer, because I had to, right? I had to. Something got you out of bed. Your first thought when you wake up this morning is, what day is it? Okay, I can sleep a little longer. It's, you have to think a little, what does this mean to you? We may have people who don't enjoy their work, who are dreading their day. Well, should we be surprised they don't sleep well if they don't enjoy what they're waking up to? Right? Some people do not enough hours in the day. Some people are just excited and just happy to do what they're doing. So I really want to know your state of mind. What does sleeping mean to you? Right? What are you sleeping for? The need for sleep is biological, but the way you sleep is learned. We've all been taught how to sleep. Don't believe me? It's easy to prove. It's a lot like food, by the way. The need for food is biological. What we eat is cultural. When you travel, anywhere you go in the world, you want to know about the food of that place. Right? What's the food like there? You always want to know that. All newborn babies drink milk. 5-year-olds throughout the world have different diets. The need for food is biological. What you eat is cultural. All of you have been taught how to sleep. Easy to prove. All of you have regular bed partners, right? All of you who have regular bed partners, the first night you shared a bed with that person, that you took a side, the other person took a side. From there forward, it was never ever discussed again. My side, your side. Never ever discussed. When you travel, you put the bags on the side that it's supposed to be, right? If your partner is out of town and you dare cross over to their side, they view that as an invasion of privacy. You used my pillow last night. I can tell, right? They view it as a thing. It's a crazy thing. And I've learned that couples will only change sides when they're much older and they have an agreement among them that somebody's got to sleep closer to the bathroom. And then when they travel, that's when they switch sides. Just that one night, because they want to be closer to the bathroom there. And if you sleep alone, you don't believe me that sleeping is learned? Easy to prove. Simply tonight, rotate your body in your bed, put your feet where your pillow belong, and see how you feel. You may even fall out of bed if you do that. Same bedroom, same mattress, same everything. Sleeping is a learned behavior. We teach our kids how to sleep, we learn how to sleep. Yes?
I was diagnosed with almost sleep apnea.
Almost sleep apnea? Doesn't that mean normal?
It's a 5.
Uh-huh.
And mine's 4.9. The doctor suggested I go to learn how to sleep better. Perhaps I can get away from using the CPAP machine. So you're saying it's learned? What kind of thing are they going to teach me?
I don't know what they're going to do for you, and I really can't talk about any of your individual sleep issues, right? But in general, so we know what to do. I don't know if that 4.9 is accurate or not. Maybe it's 5.1 if we measure it again. Why is 5 the magic number anyway? How does this come up? Because the real issue is, why did you have the sleep test to begin with?
I fall asleep during the day very easily.
Yeah, so it's not that. Something else. You need a different doctor. Hopefully it's not me who told you this. No, right? Somebody else you saw? Okay, you might need a different doctor. You might need a different physician, maybe. It's not that way at all. It depends. What they might be talking about, though, is something called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a form of treatment for insomnia where we teach you to think differently about your sleep. And I'm going to talk about that more as we go on. A correlate to this issue, yes, sir?
Doctor, is there any study that has been done that correlates students' performance to the amount of sleep he gets the night before?
Students' performance and sleep?
All depends on the quality of sleep. Because our kids sleep at 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
There are studies for all ages, showing that sleep is good for the brain. All ages, including school performance. All of them. Athletes now hire sleep coaches because sleep enhances their athletic performance. If we didn't have to sleep, guys, we wouldn't do it. There's just no getting around the fact that we have to sleep. Nothing will make you feel better. So yes, there is data showing this. There's several studies on this. In fact, if you snore, if you have a child who snores in preschool, quadruples the risk of them being put on stimulants in the first grade, just for they snore in preschool.
My question was more related to exams. Is there something that
Yes, there is data on this also, because the kids who sleep more have better quality sleep, get better grades. And the kids who sleep less are more impulsive and higher suicide tendencies. We'll talk a little more about that. This is serious stuff here, guys. So the need for sleep is different. So what's it like to live with chronic insomnia if you don't sleep well? What's it like to live your life not knowing whether you'll sleep or not? I want you to think about your life a little bit, what your life would be like if food was unpredictable to you. What if when you woke up, some days there's lots of food, you woke up some days and there's no food? You just don't know. Some days there's a lot, some days there isn't any. All day long you'd be thinking about the food. Right? We learn to anticipate our meals, right? You know Thanksgiving is coming. You may eat a little bit less that day. You're going to go to a big meal, to your favorite restaurant. You have a lighter meal. You're going to visit somebody who you don't trust the food at their house. You make sure you eat before you get there. You don't want to go to that house hungry, right? We anticipate our meals because we predict we're going to get our meals. What if sleep was like that? What if you did not know? Am I going to sleep well or not tonight? Some nights are horrible. Some nights aren't so bad. Do I take a pill? Do I not take a pill? Do I take half a pill? Do I take 2 pills? What if I run out of refills? Maybe leave a pill here by the bedside because I need it for later. Those pills are addicting. There could be a problem. But I need them. I need my sleep. Every night, night after night, week in, week out. The typical chronic insomnia, minimum is 3 months duration. The people that come to see us in the clinic, 15 to 20 years of insomnia, of suffering with their sleep. Not the kind of people who have decades and decades of poor sleep. One thing you know, if any of you have insomnia, is your bed partner sleeps pretty well. Insomniacs don't sleep with other insomniacs in their bed. They can't put up with each other. If your bed partner has insomnia, you actually don't want to sleep with that person because you don't want to be the focus of their ire in the morning when they're upset that they didn't sleep well last night. I didn't sleep well because of you. You don't want that. So people often end up in separate bedrooms because of this. Insomniacs can sleep with other insomniacs. Any couple you meet, one of you sleeps lighter than the other. Early on in the relationship, you know that one of you sleeps lighter than the other. The other one sleeps a little bit deeper. One needs a little more sleep. And over time, the difference between the couple gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think the change within couples really happens when they become parents. Because if you know you're the deep sleeper, if you hear the baby cry, you open your eyes and you quickly slam them shut and pretend you're sleeping and wait. You do this, yes? Oh, guilty. Yes, he did it. Okay, yeah. They pretend that, a lot of people do this. They hear the kid cry and they slam and they wait and they pretend they're sleeping and wait. The other one knows, the one that's designated the light sleeper in the relationship, this guy's not getting up, I'm gonna go take care of the problem. And they sleep even lighter. And the lighter you sleep, that means you're gonna watch over this other person because if sleeping is dangerous, if you have somebody who sleeps light next to you, it lets you sleep even deeper. Somebody's gonna break into the house, the light sleeper's gonna hear it first. If you have a light sleeper next to you, it allows you to sleep even deeper. And the difference gets more marked over the years. And I've seen couples where they've changed partners and they actually switch roles. Light sleeper now becomes a deep sleeper. They switch roles because the other person changed the situation. But we sleep depending on how the other person sleeps. So I like to think about how a family sleeps, not just an individual, but how the entire family sleeps. Because if one person doesn't sleep well, it impacts the entire family, right? The thought of sleeping will wake you up. A lot of famous people have had poor sleep, lots of them. You know if you've got a chronic insomnia pattern if you simply answer one question. If you find that you're drowsy, you're sleepy when you're in the living room or the kitchen or some other part of the house, you're falling asleep watching the TV set, and you say, no, come to the bedroom. When you get to the bed, wide awake. That's chronic insomnia. The thought of sleeping wakes you up. You become now conditioned to sleeping poorly there. Which, by the way, if you go to any nice hotels, you'll see that every nice hotel, if you guys go to a high-end hotel, you'll see they sell the mattresses, right? Who buys mattresses in hotels? Insomniacs. That's just buying them. Because insomniacs sleep better away from home. Usually, if anywhere around here, mattresses, anywhere you go, mattresses are always on sale. What's on TV at 3 o'clock in the morning? Mattress commercials, pillow commercials. Who are they for? They're for insomniacs. They're being marketed directly to them. And they sleep better away from home because they don't have that negative conditioning to them. So usually you buy the mattress whatever you have at your home right now, you probably bought on sale. They're always on sale. The worst mattress you ever got, garage sale. Don't buy those. In fact, in some places against the law to buy used mattresses. The reason they're used, right? Most of the guest rooms have the worst mattresses in some places. They use mattress. But if you finally get a good night's sleep, this happens to us in the sleep lab. If you come to visit the sleep lab, some of you have had sounds like sleep studies. Put wires in your head and sensors everywhere. Cameras are on you. Your strangers all around you watching you sleep. People say, hey, what kind of mattresses do you have? Because they sleep so much better there because they're away from their environment. So that's how people end up buying mattresses in hotels, I think. It's because they've come conditioned to this. And it's never on sale at the hotel. It's full price, right? There's no deals there. A lot of famous people have insomnia. Insomnia is a thinker's condition. People who don't think don't really get insomnia. It's a thinker's condition. This is how we explain insomnia. And if you understand how this develops, then you'll understand how to fix it. The thinking that everybody in this room at some point has the ability to push off sleep. You could be perfectly sleeping just fine. Somebody yells fire, you're going to get up and you should be able to wake up. Sleeping, if you think about it, is very different than being awake, but it must also be on a hair trigger, rapidly reversible. Very different biology, sleeping than awake, but you must get out of sleep super fast. It's very fast. Yes, sir?
Wouldn't adrenaline be very, very critical to that transition?
That'll be part of it. A lot of hormones involved in sleep, not just adrenaline, a lot of them. Cortisol is actually very important in sleep. But hopefully not every time you wake up, you're shot out of a cannon. Sometimes you wake up gently and, look over and see this beautiful person next to you, and you're in love and you're happy. Not every awakening is a crisis, right? Right? It has to be that way. But the point being that sleep has to be reversible, right? It has to be rapidly reversible. So there's something called the arousal threshold. At what point will you stay awake? What will get you out of sleep? The arousal threshold. And some of us have more than others, right? I personally don't sleep well. I sleep very well in general, but I don't sleep well if I have to catch an early morning flight and I'm staying away. If I'm out of town and I have to catch an early morning flight, I don't want to miss my flight. I don't trust that the wake-up call, I have my phone, that's when I don't sleep. And I pop awake before the alarm clock. So there's an insomnia tendency, a state of mind. And some of us are more predisposed to it than others. More studies show that your biological gender, being a woman, makes you more prone to insomnia than men, about 2 to 1. Little kids have insomnia just as much as each other. Boys and girls, no difference. Teenage girls, more insomnia than teenage boys. In fact, in society, teenage girls get a lot less sleep than teenage boys. It's thought to be more of a problem among them. Certain personality types. If you're a perfectionist, the more logical you are, guys, and there must be some of you here, the more analytical you are, the more perfectionist you are, the more likely you are to screw up your sleep. You got to be a thinker to get insomnia. Because you try to fix the problem, you're going to fix it by being awake. The right approach to most sleep problems is counterintuitive. If you apply logic to a sleep problem, you're going to get screwed. It doesn't work that way. You cannot apply logic to a sleep problem. Because logic, let's say, is if I can't sleep, I should rest. Resting and sleeping are two very different things biologically. If we got up and did 100 jumping jacks, you're going to feel tired, but you're not going to feel sleepy. So sleeping and tiredness may converge or diverge. The more analytical you are, the more likely you are to screw up your sleep. I have lots of my patients are here from Silicon Valley. A lot of them are, I have a ton of engineers I take care of. Very analytical people, very smart people, very sophisticated people, the more they screw it up. Logic is if I wake up depending on what time I slept. If I have trouble sleeping, then when should I wake up? Whenever I wake up. But that's not how it works, because the brain is trying to predict dawn and dusk. So if you have a variable wake-up time, you mess up your falling asleep time. Again, you cannot apply logic to sleep that way. So some people are more prone to insomnia than others. Some of us, some sugar comes along. Could be anything, good news, bad news. Anything can trigger a bout of insomnia. Most of us, the bout of insomnia passes, the trigger passes and we sleep better again. For example, let me assume that all of you live in nice homes, nice neighborhoods, and you like your neighbors. Let's assume that. You like your neighbors, they're good people. You like your neighbors. You ask your neighbors, they're nice people. They don't bother me, they're good people, my neighbors. One night you're woken up because your neighbors threw a party. You hear the laughter, you hear the noise. They woke you up, party dies down, you go back to sleep. Next morning you see a neighbor, they say, hey, I'm sorry if we bothered you last night. Had some friends over. You go, no, it's okay, little white lie, no big deal. That's fine. You know you're going to sleep better the next night, you'll catch up. But imagine your neighbors throw a second party and a third party. The fourth or fifth time they wake you up, now they go, how come these bastards never invite me to their parties? What's going on here? How come I can't go to their parties? Who do they think they are? They're disrespecting me. So it's no longer the noise, it's what the noise represents. Right? You see this a lot of times, people goes, I can't sleep because my spouse snores. Now I know people, I'm from New York, people sleep next to all kinds of noise in New York. But it's not the noise, it's that what the noise represents. If you really cared about me, you know it bothers me, you don't take care of your snoring, I've told you before, you don't do anything about it, it's not just the noise, what the noise represents. It's not just that. So what drives the insomnia, what makes it continue, is not what triggered it, it's what drives it. And usually what drives it is misconceptions about sleep. Let's imagine you've had several nights of bad sleep, many nights of bad sleep. And all of a sudden one morning you wake up and go, gee, I slept well last night. What was better about last night? What was different about last night? And you go and tell yourself, last night was actually quieter than usual. Last night was actually really quiet. I just need a good pair of earplugs. You go to the store and get the most expensive set of earplugs you can find, right? Put on the earplugs, and now you tell your family members, don't make any noise tonight. I'm putting in my earplugs. I'm checking out. And you sleep better that night. Excellent. Now you convince yourself that you need quiet to sleep. But when you put in your earplugs, it's harder to hear. And you never adjust the root cause of your insomnia to begin with, and the insomnia will come back. And now you need a special device now, you need a machine, better earplugs, and you get more and more conditioned. And one of the sayings we have is the longer you've had insomnia, the weirder it gets, the more conditions you have. If you live with an insomniac, they have a list of things that they need to have in order to sleep, and they're still not sleeping that well. And their bed partner says, whatever, I'll sleep under any circumstances you want, right? So what we try to do when we take care of our patients is not change their predisposition, we can't change that, and we can change the trigger. We don't have a time machine. We figure out what's driving the insomnia. What things do you swear are true about your own sleep that are actually wrong. And that's called cognitive behavioral therapy, about teaching you how to sleep. That may be what they meant when they said that to you. We figure out what is the biological factors behind this, but also we can figure out what do you swear is true about your sleep that may not actually be true. For example, if you're having trouble sleeping, it's logical to go to bed earlier so you can fall asleep. People with insomnia talk a certain way that only insomniacs talk about. Nobody else talks the way they do. They say things like, I try to go to sleep. Nobody else says that. Everybody else says, I go to sleep. If you're trying to go to sleep, you got to stay awake to do that. So you can't do it that way. You don't try to get hungry. You're not trying to breathe. If you're trying to breathe, something is wrong, right? So you shouldn't be trying to sleep. You should be going to bed when you're sleepy, right? And think about when you go to bed. You go to bed to sleep, or you're waiting to bed for it to kick in. And we may have something in the back of this. A lot of times you hear, with younger people, they say things like, I have trouble falling asleep, but not staying asleep. Most people in our age group have trouble staying asleep. Doc, I'm not trouble falling asleep, I have trouble staying asleep. If you really talk with them about how they fall asleep, they have trouble falling asleep that they're masking. So they're reading a book until it falls out of their hand, or they have a TV or something in the background, or there's a podcast. They just kind of block out their thoughts. And then they pop awake. If you really believe the most dangerous thing you can do is sleep, then if you think anything is wrong, the brain's going to avoid sleeping as much as it can. Sleep is seasonal. People, if you've got friends in Alaska, they'll tell you they sleep more in the winter, less in the summer. Right? So let's just imagine that any given day, you have 10 things to do, and you got 8 of them done. You had a fantastic day. You got 8 out of 10 things done. But the 2 that you forgot, when are you going to remember? For most of us, I want you to think a moment and think about your own life right now, right? When are you alone with your thoughts? When are you doing nothing but thinking? Think about wellness. When are you doing nothing but thinking? When are you alone with your thoughts? For most of us, the only time we're alone with our thoughts is we're in bed. Oh no, people say I'm alone. When I'm driving, I'm alone with my thoughts. No, you're not. You're driving. When you're doing nothing but thinking. Probably was not an atypical thing to do in the past. Now rarely they spend time just thinking. When are you alone with your thoughts? Most people, it's when they're in bed. And now they're giving the body mixed signals. I want to sleep, but I also have things to think about. And that's when you start to lay in bed and your arm flinches on you, things jerk on you, and you're falling into the bed. You feel that feeling? It's because you're giving your body mixed signals. You're saying, I want to sleep, I'm in bed, but I want to stay awake because I got things to think about. So if I've got 10 things and I only got 8 done, that's pretty good. The 2 I forgot, you're going to remember during the night. I mean, you're going to remember before you fall asleep. But if you instead go to sleep and just crash, people use that term crash, right? I stayed awake until I crashed. Little kids don't do that. They don't crash, right? You imagine a little kid, oh, Dad, I just crashed. You think that's not good, right? Think this with me, okay? The need for sleep is biological, right? But the way you sleep is a learned component, right? Your sleep in reality is a reflection of your life, and your life is reflected in the way you sleep. It goes in both directions. Your life is reflected in your sleep is a reflection of your life. It goes in both directions. You have to think about the kind of life you have and what's going on with you. Think about your sleep. Who do you think are the best sleepers in society? If you think about all age groups, who are best sleepers? Think about your whole life, guys, from your time you were born to now. Babies, you don't really want to sleep like a baby. You don't want to be incontinent. I mean, they sleep pretty well, but they don't sleep that great. They sleep only an hour or so at a time. Babies sleep pretty good, but not that well. Teenagers have real problems with their sleep. Our best sleepers are actually 8 and 9-year-olds. You know, if I ask a group of teenagers who are the best sleepers, they'll say the elderly, right? So it's very interesting. It's always somebody else. It's not me. Here's what you're saying. I know it's not. I'm not doing it. Our best sleepers. If you think about this simple truth that your life is reflected in your sleep and your sleep is reflected in your life. Think about the life of a typical 8 or 9-year-old person. And I want you to think about your own lives, how you're doing this. Think about a typical 8 or 9-year-old person coming home from school, maybe has to do some homework. You're 8, right? Good. Perfect. You're sleeping well? Oh. Cool. So you're sleeping well. You come home from school, maybe have a snack, have to do some homework. You think it's a lot, but it's not really that much, but you think it's a lot, right? Right? So when you're 8 or 9 years old, you finish your homework. You have dinner. By the time you finish homework and have dinner, it's too late to go outside. Not a bunch of little kids like Ryan running around the streets at night. They're inside the house. They're spending time with their family. When you're 8 or 9 years old, you have a set bedtime. Their parents still tuck you in. You have to go to bed. 4 and 5-year-olds fight their bedtime. 8 and 9-year-olds know they have to go to their room. Parents stop by the room and say, good night, I love you. When you're 8 or 9 years old, somebody wakes you up in time to go to school. clothes are laid out for you. When you're 8 or 9 years old, do not worry about the mortgage or the rent, safety of the house. It's all taken care of for you. You pop awake. When you're 8 or 9 years old, you run around all day full of energy. When you're 8 or 9 years old, you go to bed feeling safe, comfortable, and loved. You have serenity. Do most of you go to bed feeling that your day's done and you're finished with all your work? You're not, right? Let's just imagine all of you right now, you're with your bed partner. It's a perfect night for sleep. Everything is just right. Perfect. Everything's just right. You're in bed. You're about to drift off to sleep. And you turn to your partner and go, honey, did you lock the front door and you turn off the stove? And your partner says to you, I think so. What's going to happen? You're going to make your partner get up and go check? You're going to get up and go check. Or as you're about to get up and check, your partner says to you, you worry too much. You do this every night. I'm pretty sure I turned off the stove. I'm almost positive I locked the front door. If you lay there long enough, what's going to happen? You will fall asleep. You cannot deny the biological drive to sleep. After a few hours, you're going to fall asleep. You will always fall asleep. But after 3 or 4 hours, you're going to pop awake and go check the front door and go check the stove. Right? There's a difference between being safe and feeling safe. You get up and you see the stove was turned off and the door was locked, everything was fine, but you couldn't sleep. You can have the complete opposite thing. You can fall asleep, sleep through the night, wake up refreshed, the birds are singing. When you go and look in the front of your house, the front door was left wide open. It wasn't even locked. Not even forget locked, it was just left open. Right? You weren't safe, but you thought you were. So your state of mind dominates all these things. So you got to think a little bit how you approach sleep, how you think about these things. That's why the current way of thinking of insomnia, we no longer rely much on medication. We now are using more behavioral treatment. So sleeping pills can be useful. The original medications, the oldest things we ever had were love potions and sleeping pills. If you think back to the history of early herbs and things people prepared, they were for sleeping, right? It probably was the same stuff for both situations, I bet, right? But it goes back, right? And the guidelines are from the Academy. This is a professional journal for us in sleep medicine, Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine. And they found that there's weak evidence for most sleeping pills to work. It's not saying they're bad. We're not saying that. This is not a black and white situation. They're just tools. But the science to show that they're effective is weak. Melatonin, by the way, if you look over, somebody asked about melatonin. Specifically, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine specifically states that melatonin not been found to have evidence that it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's saying, when we say evidence, that means that you've done the proper research study, where you've taken a population of people, randomized controlled trial, and somebody's blinded, and you give them and see if it has an effect. When that has been done, it has not been shown to work. But the evidence is weak. It's not saying it doesn't work. It's saying evidence is weak. Everything you give somebody for sleeping will work to some degree, because part of sleeping is a psychological hypervigilance to it. So everything will work for a while. In fact, if you actually look at any sleeping product that you have, anything that's for sleep, they always compare the side effects to placebo. You'll notice that every one of those tables, the placebo has side effects. Always. The people on placebo get hangovers. So if you feel a hangover in a sleeping pill, yeah, maybe a real hangover from the pill, but know that the placebo group also gets a hangover. Because if you've not slept well for a while, when you take anything for your sleep, you sleep deeper, you're going to feel a little fuzzy in the morning at first. It takes a few days. So a lot of people say, well, I'm a little scared of this pill, I'm not going to take it. And then I only take it for one day. One morning I felt bad, I'm stopping it. I knew this was bad. You got to give it a few days to really see whether it's for real, what's happening. Even the placebo group has side effects for all these sleeping pills, all of them. So knowing this, the push has now been to take a different direction. So for the last 3 or 4 years, the current thinking is, now that we understand what insomnia is about, this hypervigilance to sleeping, now we got to teach you how to sleep better. And cognitive behavioral therapy is predicated on the concept that people behave a certain way because they think a certain way. And that your sleep, if you have insomnia, in part, there's going to be a component of something something you think is true that's actually not true about your own sleep. And we got to give you the right information. And if we give you the right information, then you'll think differently, which will let you behave differently, and it'll gradually, over several weeks, we need about 2 months, it'll snowball in your favor. We can't get you better in 2 or 3 days. If you've been sleeping horribly for years, and you come see one of us and we say what to do, and the next day you sleep great, that's good. But you're also surprised by this. The next night you go, well, if it doesn't work this time. The novelty of sleeping well has to wear off before you're really there. As long as you're surprised you're getting a good night's sleep, you're not there yet. People who sleep well are not surprised that they slept well. They just know they sleep well, right? It's not a surprise to them. So it takes a little while to get rid of that. So there's CBT available, and it's available throughout the Bay Area. Whoever you are seeing for your primary care, your physicians, you can ask about CBT. There's somebody doing it in your community. There has to be. Pretty much every medical system in the Bay Area has this now. It wasn't like this 5 years ago, but now it's established. It's the way to go. These are some of the ideas behind it. One of the ideas behind this, another way to make you sleep better, is have you spend less time in bed. Let's say you normally go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. You get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's 8 hours of sleep. But you're only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Now, you've heard something similar in your lives. Okay? If you're spending 8 hours in bed to get 5 hours of sleep, that's actually inefficient. So people say, what can I take? What can I do? What we actually have you do is go to bed later. Because what we try to do is, so I ask somebody, well, what schedule do you want to have? Well, you go to bed at 10 o'clock, you're getting up at 6, and they say, Doc, I like to be on a 10 to 6 schedule. Okay, great. Let's keep the 6 o'clock fixed. You're good at staying awake. Lock in the wake-up time. And I say, now you're going to go to bed at midnight, later bedtime. People say the same thing every time. They say, I can't stay up that late. You go, yes, you can. You have insomnia. You can stay up later. You can do it, okay? You can do it. Stay up later. The idea behind this is if you spend less time in bed, initially the body will reject it, but later the body will sleep deeper, go into deeper sleep. It's like lifting weights. I don't lift weights because I get sore. No. Work it properly and your muscles will adapt to it. Same thing with sleep. First thing we want to do is somebody sleeping very choppy, 2 hours here, an hour and a half, and 2 hours there. First we crunch it into a single block and then we stretch it out. And people argue, well, isn't it natural for us to have this choppy sleep? Everything that I talk to you about, you're always going to say, but it doesn't apply to me. That's okay. Not all of you have insomnia, right? If you don't have diabetes, have chocolate cake for breakfast. Enjoy it. The question is, do you have a problem with your sleep? How can we get you out of it? And the data is, the good news, folks, is about 2/3 to 80% of people who learn to do this stop taking medications for their sleep and no longer think of themselves having insomnia in about 2 months. So if somebody's been suffering for a condition for 20 years, and we tell you in 2 months we're going to get you better, maybe it's worthwhile giving it a shot. The data is there to support this. Okay? How do we get kids to fall asleep in the lab? We tell them to stay awake. Stay awake. Go ahead. Somebody, just stay awake. Just stay awake. Boom, and they fall asleep. Let's talk about sleep apnea. Apnea is just a Greek word that means without air. We're running a little bit of time, so I want to move along. And this is this is a pause in somebody's breathing. These are brain waves. This is REM sleep. And then this line is the air coming out. Oops. Air is not moving, but the chest is trying to make an effort to breathe, so their throat is blocked. Nobody here should ever snore. All snoring is abnormal. Right now, listen to yourselves. Who's snoring? Thankfully, nobody yet. Oh, no, sir, thank you for volunteering. No, I meant at this moment. Right? Thank you, sir. No, at this moment, nobody's snoring. Right? Breathing is silent. If you believe that sleeping is inherently dangerous, why don't you just tip off your presence to predators by making noise? I've had patients tell me, oh, no, snoring chases away the wild animals. Really? No, it's a dinner bell. That's what it is. Nothing in the wild snores. Snoring means there's a turbulent airflow. It is not normal to snore. It is common, but it's not normal. You may have a cold occasion or something like that, but you should not be snoring on a regular basis, especially not normal for your kids to snore. It's a real problem. The original description of sleep apnea, by the way, was in children. Charles Dickens, I'm sure the book's in the library here, the Pickwick Papers, Mr. Pickwick, is a middle-aged, overweight man chasing his hat, and no doubt this guy probably snored a ton. But what Dickens was describing as somebody who was sleepy and overweight was a boy named Joe up here. And on the box sat a fat and red-faced boy in a state of somnolency. Despite this commotion, it was something that was a comedic figure in the book. The snoring kid that was not too bright was a comedic figure. Been like this for a long time. These are kids in orphanages and in schools. What is the stereotype of somebody who's not smart? If we want to make fun of somebody who we don't think is bright, we go, duh. Mouth breather, yes, ma'am, that's what we do, duh. Turns out, a long time ago, people noticed that mouth breathers weren't smart. And what happens is if your nose is blocked, you can't get oxygen to your brain and your brain doesn't develop properly. And if your nose is blocked, normally, we can tell who snores in the room, if you all play along. Right now, the biggest thing in our throats, the throat being the space from your Adam's apple to the back of your nose, the biggest thing in our throats is our tongue. That takes up the most space. Normally, the tongue should fit into the roof of your mouth like a hand and glove. Tongue is wet, roof of the mouth is wet, it stays together. When you're on your back, it should stay in place because it's being held in place. But if instead, when you're a child, when you're little, because we've seen overweight sleep apnea people from the beginning, but we see a whole bunch of skinny people with sleep apnea too. A lot of women who are thin, who don't have the magic cutoff of 5. And we come up with other terms like upper air resistance syndrome to describe a situation of somebody who's having difficulty breathing, but doesn't quite have these apneas to the same degree. Because apnea means you stop breathing. But there's some people who are going to have fragmentation of their sleep, choppy sleep, before they stop breathing. Just from the increased work of breathing is enough to make you tired for some people. So the tongue is the biggest thing holding up space, taking up space in our throats, and it should stay in position. But if instead, as a child, as a little kid, 3, 4, 5 years old, you stepped with your mouth open, you had allergies, they didn't take out your tonsils for whatever reason, something happened, and now you've been sleeping as a little kid like this. The growth hormone, by the way, that makes our bones get longer is secreted in our sleep. We're not growing all the time, we're actually growing in our sleep. That's when the lengthening of the bones occurs. So if you're sleeping like this, your face will grow like that. You have more vertical growth. And that's what they're showing you here. You can look this up online, look it up on your phones. This idea of having a long face syndrome, adenoid face. And this was described a long time ago by people who were just observing this, saying the people who have faces in this shape are less smart than the other people. And this whole idea of being slack-jawed. They didn't do as well in school. This was actually been shown. And just seeing all of these kids who are mouth-breathing kids, they don't do as well, right? If you look at these photos, they don't look bright. Something to think about this. So your cells right now, I'm sure a lot of smart people in the room, but when your mouth is closed, is the very tip of your tongue touches your teeth, but not the roof of your mouth, you probably have a tendency to snore. When your mouth is closed, the tip of your tongue should hit the roof of your mouth. Should not be touching your teeth at all. If you're sleeping with your tongue out of position, there's going to be an issue. And if you have this long elongation of your face, the jaw won't be lining up correctly with your upper jaw, and you're going to need braces, need your teeth taken out. All kinds of things will happen because you have this facial elongation. That's what we're looking for. This was a death certificate in 1977 of somebody who died from sleep apnea. I'm going to skip over this, a little bit too morbid. That used to be the treatment, holding neck. Sleep apnea, people can't breathe well while they're sleeping. And what happens is if you're being choked, your heart rate's going to go up. Your blood pressure's going to go up. Sleep apnea is worse when you're dreaming. That's when the muscles are most relaxed. Sleep apnea is worse when you're dreaming. If you've had some treatment for sleep apnea, it's that tail end of the night that matters the most. So if you've been choked all night, hundreds of times, which happens to sleep apnea, we find out that when you're awake, your blood pressure is now elevated also. So having hypertension that doesn't respond well to medication is now considered an independent factor for somebody to get checked for their sleep. And your cardiologist, if you have one, will actually want your sleep checked out for sleep apnea, especially if you snore. Reflux. Heartburn gets worse, morning headaches, unrefreshing sleep, grumpy, trouble focusing, trouble losing weight, bedwetting. Any bedwetters in the room? Getting up to pee at night, by the way, is a sign of sleep apnea. A lot of people get up and pee at night. A lot of us do it. A lot of men typically say it's my prostate, and it may be prostate in serious condition. If you got prostate, don't ignore it. However, snoring by itself will make you get up and pee because that work to breathe, to get air through the narrowing, that diaphragm pushes down on your bladder and makes you get up and go pee at night. And little kids, if they snore and they're bedwetters, when you help them stop snoring, the bedwetting stops within a week, about half the time. Fast, real fast. So bedwetting, something to look for. Sweating in your sleep and snoring. Those are all things that can happen from not getting enough sleep. Super common. If you snore, if you've got sleep apnea, somebody in your family has it too. It runs in family. The shape of your face has a lot to do with this. This will run in your family. It's not just genetics, it's also going to be environmental. Allergy will run in your families. Super common. You can be very thin and have sleep apnea, especially women. So sleeping should be silent. I made that point earlier. There's a lot of different treatments for it now. Usually it's making anything in the back of the throat wider. This just shows how we normally supposed to have our throats or sleeping with our mouths closed. If you sleep with your mouth open, the tongue's out of position. Normally, if you're a little kid, right, You look at the little kid's tongue, it's a little tiny muscle, fits in the roof of the mouth, the face grows, it makes space for itself on the roof of the mouth. It fits like a hand and glove. If instead, you guys, when we were little, you were mouth breathers, now the tongue grew out of position. And eventually, the tonsil things get better, and things get better for yourself. You're 10, 12, 14, but now you become a young adult, or you're now in your 30s, all of a sudden sleep apnea will rear its head. Women, especially after age 50, start having sleep apnea. And when you look, it's happened is they were set up for this, we think, when they were little kids. That set up the anatomy, and then as they get older, put on some weight, muscle tone decreases, and it all comes together. It becomes an issue. We look for this high roof of the mouth. That's what we're looking for. I want to show you this, guys. There's probably a doorstop somewhere in your doctor's office called the DSM-4. That's the way we diagnose things in psychiatry. I'm not a psychiatrist, but this is the standard book. I'm sure there's one in the library, DSM-4. You can pull it up. Currently now they're on DSM-5. It gets updated. But version 4. So a lot of your young adults here, when they were kids, it was version 4 that was in place. Specifically said that if you have ADD, you might have a high arch palate. So psychiatrists and psychologists, behavioral people were specifically taught that if your roof of your mouth was high, that was a physical sign of having ADD. We know anybody who doesn't get enough sleep is going to have trouble paying attention. And if you give anybody who's not getting enough sleep a stimulant, like Ritalin or a cup of coffee, they're going to feel better for a little while. But they didn't get to the root issue. We can measure with different sleep tests, different treatments for it now. The breathing machines, by the way, these breathing machines that are around now, the CPAP machines, they've never been better. They're actually quieter, smaller. Now they're pretty much pocket size. Some of the nicer ones, they're silent. They should not be making a lot of noise. We are now living in, when we look back on our field, the golden era of sleep apnea. I mean, CPAP, it's just much better. See this travel size little ones now? A lot of things are doing it. I'm not trying to sell you on a product. I'm letting you know that if you tried this before and it didn't work, try it again, because it's just gotten so much better the last couple of years. There's really good surgeries that have been developed. And now the latest thing you may not have heard of, now they've come up with pacemakers for sleep apnea. Actually, the biggest thing in our throats is our tongue. They now have pacemakers for our tongue. And it's an implantable device, just goes on this like a regular pacemaker, but instead of having the wire go to your heart, it goes to your tongue. And it senses when you're inhaling, and normally when you inhale, the tongue goes backwards. This senses you're inhaling and sends a signal to the tongue, push away. So now have pacemakers for our tongue. So that was the latest treatment for sleep apnea now. Implantable device, no machine, other than this thing that you're sleeping with. You just have this big remote control. You turn it on when you go to bed, turn it off when you wake up in the morning. And it works, covered by insurance. Been around 5 or 6 years, even Medicare pays for it now. So this is established. And when you know Medicare pays for something, it's become established. It means that the science behind it is good. Oral appliances, dentists will make things for you. Again, trying to get the tongue out of the way. The tongue is what takes up space in our throats. So if I throw my tongue back, if I can move my jaw forward, my tongue's connected to my jaw and moves it forward. And they all work. You just got to pick the right treatment. I always tell my patients, if a doctor gives you choices, there's a problem, right? They don't give you choices for some things. Appendicitis, appendix coming out, nothing to discuss. So the pros and cons of all these things. I just want to segue quickly into this topic of kids and sleep. Can sleepy kids learn anything? Because that was a question. 2012, data from Korea. I don't know if anybody here is from Korea. Korean teenagers are the most sleep deprived on the planet right now when this has been measured. It's a culture of not giving kids enough sleep in Korea, in South Korea specifically. And they found that 20% of the kids, 19% of the kids, were not getting enough sleep based on these criteria that were established, including sleeping in more than 2 hours on weekends. And those kids had higher suicidal tendencies, suicidal ideation. That's Korea. The United States, we always think, oh, if a kid is not happy or depressed, that's the problem. Yes, people with depression can be suicidal, but it turns out that sleep deprivation by itself makes you impulsive. When you don't get enough sleep, the brain is engineered, or whatever, developed, or evolved, however you want to think of it. If there's not enough food around, we go into a mode of taking chances. The brain does this really interesting thing. When you're sleep deprived, to the brain it means something is wrong, so the brain starts to switch into a mode of taking chances. It starts to gamble. That's what happens when people go to casinos. When you're sleep deprived, you make more mistakes. You overvalue the reward, undervalue the risks. This has actually been something that's been measured consistently when some people don't get enough sleep. And it's been shown in all ages, in all of us, but particularly teenage boys, are more likely to take a chance when they're sleep deprived, take that risk. They've done this with driving simulators. when you sleep deprive them, they actually think they're driving better, because when you don't get enough sleep, your body surges these hormones like cortisol, so they make you feel good. So you actually feel good, you have an euphoria with it, but you actually are making more mistakes. This is a little bit of data showing that the girls are particularly prone. About 25% of the girls are getting enough sleep. That's just 7 hours. If you guys deal with teenagers in any way in your jobs, in your life, personally or professionally, when you deal with teenagers, you should just assume the teenager you're dealing with likely is not getting enough sleep. When you get on that carnival ride and you get that roller coaster, the teenager operating that thing's probably not getting enough sleep. Okay? Just know that, okay? If you deal with teenagers, the odds are they're not getting enough sleep. To the point, this data from the Center for Disease Control, by the way. This is the CDC. This is our tax dollars at work. Center for Disease Control has described lack of sleep among young people, in particular, as an epidemic, because it's growing in numbers and it has health consequences. This was a study, just 2018, when they looked at sleep deprivation across different countries. They were doing a lot of work in Taiwan, but also in the US, and they combined over almost 600,000 teenagers, and they found that not getting enough sleep was an independent risk factor. And I think what they said was, for every 1 hour of sleep less they got, jumped the amount of suicidal thinking by 11%. The Academy of Pediatrics, there was enough data that in 2014, the American Academy of Pediatrics said all kids should start school no earlier than 9:30 as the best bang for the buck. The RAND Corporation, you can look at this. RAND Corporation did a study just last year, and in California, I think, I don't want to exaggerate the numbers, I think the state would save like $5 billion within 3 years, I think it was. I don't remember the exact number, but it was in billions of dollars, because they found that when they've changed the school start time, one of the things that decreased right away was less accidents around the school. Less school accidents happened. So this is the bill that's out there now to delay school start time. All the medical societies are supporting this, every single one. But interesting, you know who's now supporting it that wasn't supporting it before? Law enforcement. It turns out the Sheriff's Association in California is now supporting delaying school start times, because the data is juvenile crime peaks after school. So if the kids go to school a little later, they get out a little later, crime decreases. So this has now been shown that this has been a good thing for people. And also when kids get more sleep, they get less likely to get into physical accidents at school. They don't get injured in sports as much. So that's another reason we're doing it. The opposition, by the way, has been local schools that think that this should be decided at the local level, that this should not be. They say, we don't doubt the science, but you should not tell us what to do. They view Sacramento imposing their will in local communities. That's the battle we're dealing with right now. And where this stands right now is moving through the assembly. We did this already last year. Governor Brown vetoed it. Now we're hoping that we get it through the legislative process again, and hopefully the new governor will sign it. We'll see what happens. But this has been in the news lately. This is called 328. We can talk about that. One second, I want to finish up because we're out of time. We do have time for questions. Did anybody had a question at the beginning of the session that I didn't get to? Because we have a hard stop in a few minutes. There's something I didn't go over? Yes, sir?
So it's about, let's say you sleep 6 hours, but you have the impression that you're better off with 8 hours. The issue is trying to sleep the extra 2 hours.
Back to that word trying. So if you want to increase your time in sleep, there's actually experiments called sleep extension. You do it by either going to bed around 15 minutes later, once a week. You can't do it all of a sudden, because we have this second wind at night. So if you just try to do it all at once, your body will reject it, and you get frustrated. You can go change your bedtime 15 minutes and just wait about a week or so, and then if you fill it in, go another 15. Wait a week or so, fill it in. You can't do it all at once. Your body rejects it. That's why we get jet lagged. You can't make an abrupt change in your sleep in 1 or 2 days. It'll get rejected. The clock is blocked there. Is it 3:30 yet, or how are we doing for time? 10 minutes? Okay, sir, you had a question? Yeah.
Is it possible to die from nightmares? I mean, have a heart attack?
How would we prove it?
I know, yeah.
So there's a common question. This is because I was reading about this. People say, there's people sometimes say, if you die in your sleep, will you die in real life? People say that. How can we prove it? But there's this thing called lucid dreaming where people can control their dreams. And lucid dreamers have talked to us about, on purpose, allowing themselves to die and seeing what it would be like. So they've seen their own funerals and things. And the classic thing people ask about is, if it's really true that if I'm falling off a cliff, if I don't wake up or hit the ground, I'll die. You've heard this before, somebody nodding your head? So a lucid dreamer allowed himself to hit the ground on purpose, and guess what happened in his dream? He bounced. That's what happened. So you can flip it around that way. However, people do die in their sleep. This has consequences right now. Since segue just a little bit into the political side of this, Judge Anthony Scalia died in his sleep. And if you look at this is not controversial, this actually was in the news. Judge Scalia, if you read the story, Supreme Court Justice Scalia was traveling and was with his buddies. He was in some lodge or something in Texas. And at his, when he was found dead, he said his breathing machine was unplugged next to him. So he probably had sleep apnea, he just didn't use his machine that night, and he choked and died in his sleep. So we think it's during the nightmares that it happens. It's not the fear of the nightmare in and of itself. It's that when you are dreaming, your heart's accelerating. So if you have sleep apnea, you're choking in your sleep, not getting enough oxygen, and your heart rate is accelerating, it's a perfect storm for something bad to happen to you. And that's, by the way, sir, how sleep research became sleep medicine. There's need to explain precisely the question, how do people die in their sleep? What's so hard about sleeping that somebody would die? And that's what we think is behind it. Lady in the back didn't ask any questions, yes? Hi.
I have a 19-year-old niece who was just diagnosed with sleep apnea. She lives in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And would I be able to purchase a CPAP machine for her here, or would I need to get a prescription? How would I go about getting it?
You should be able to get, they sell CPAP throughout the world, so you should be able to send her the cash to the Philippines and her buy her own machine, have it fitted by a doctor. Because, no, because they're the same machines that they're going to sell. Look, what the current machines that we have here are the same ones they sell there. There may be some off-brands, but the main machines, to the brands, the main in the United States is ResMed and Respironics. If you get a ResMed machine or Respironics machine, they'll buy it there. It may cost more than the knockoff or something that they might be selling. But it's not just a machine. It's not like going to Costco. The machine has to be set, and has to write the right mask. So you, out of the kindness of your heart, you may want to send her a machine, but it may not be set correctly. There's a CPAP, there's a bi-level. It makes more sense to provide her the funds for her to have a sleep doctor in the Philippines. The Philippines has excellent sleep medicine. There's some really good people out there doing work. So, yes, sir. Or I'll say, you raise your hand first, I thought. Didn't you in the back?
Yeah. Is there any research that has information about the effects of chocolate?
Oh, the chocolate lady. I'm sorry. Yes, I knew this. You want to know whether, first of all, there's not that much. Eat your chocolate. It's going to be fine. There's people worried about the caffeine effects of chocolate. It's not that strong. I don't think it's as big a deal. The way you metabolize caffeine may be individually different. Coffee, some people are fast metabolizers, some are slow metabolizers of it. So if you're having trouble with your sleep, it's unlikely that chocolate is the culprit. It's probably something else. So I wouldn't think that would be as big a deal. There's no reason why you can have chocolate for breakfast, though, and see if it affects your sleep, right? Yes. No, I don't think that chocolate is as big a deal as they make it to be, as far as the caffeine portion in the actual chocolate of itself. It may not be that, unless you happen to be very sensitive to caffeine in general. Then it would be not just chocolate, but any caffeine, even a soft drink with caffeinated would affect your sleep also. But so I don't think chocolate is as big a deal as they make it. Sir?
The advisability or lack thereof of napping?
Napping is like snacking, okay? So if you're not getting enough sleep, then a nap makes complete sense. It's a luxury. Why not take a nap? It's a nice thing to do. However, if you're somebody who has a hard time sleeping at night, then napping is a problem. People with insomnia sleep better away from their beds. So sometimes what they do is they fall asleep on the couch or in the living room on a recliner, and they call that a nap. What they are is really just sleeping when their guard is down, when they're not trying to sleep. So that's who wants to avoid the nap. But if you're somebody who's just not getting enough sleep during your regular night, you can do your sleep in spurts. If you're a shift worker, by the way, napping makes a lot of sense, because most of us wake up and go to work. So if you're a shift worker, you may have a chunk of sleep when you get home from work, but then it makes sense to take a nap just before you get up and start your day, start your shift. Now, the thing with the nap issue is the duration. The nap should be less than an hour and a half, ideally around 40 minutes. If your naps are longer than that, you kind of feel sluggish. It throws you off. So for pilots, by the way, if you ever notice when you do international flights, now they have mandated napping sessions for the crew. And they also have rules about the duration of that nap period. It has to be 40 minutes or so, only that they give them. If you sleep longer than that, it messes you up. Do we have time for more? Where's Claire? Yes? Yes, did you ask more than once? Twice? Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Could you comment on the idea of enhancing circulation above the neck at that time to facilitate this purging process and thus the quality of sleep and maybe the total sleep time required?
So the people are trying to, first they're trying to prove whether this is true or not. It's not really clear if it's true. It's not clear what part of this. What happens is the spinal fluid, you know, if you ever look at spinal fluid, it's nice clear liquid. The circulation of it in our brains jumps by a factor of 10 when we're sleeping. So there's really fast circulation. And the thought is that it's bathing the brain and cleansing out things. It's like kind of flushing out your brain during part of the night, not the entire night. And that maybe some people who have some type of problems like early dementia may have an impaired system, these things are accumulating. That's the hypothesis. It's to be proven. But if this turns out to be true, then there'll be pushes to open up that space. There are medications that can enhance your slow wave sleep, that make you sleep very, very deeply. But it still hasn't gotten to the point where it says that doing this can reverse the process of dementia or anything like that in somebody. It would make sense that it would work, but a lot of things that we think make sense in medicine have turned out to be very bad. So you got to give it some time to prove this still. But that's where we're headed, and that general idea behind that. Sir, you've not, what is, hi.
Neuropathy of the feet, does it have similar effects as restless leg syndrome on falling asleep?
It's different. The gentleman asked about restless legs and neuropathy of the feet. A neuropathy is a diseased nerve. People with diabetes will have it, a lot of congenital forms. That's the actual nerve is damaged. Restless leg syndrome is not a damaged nerve. It's actually, oddly enough, a problem with the way the brain handles iron. Iron is a cofactor. The body uses iron in the brain to make dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. Dopamine is absent, defect in people who have Parkinson's disease, doesn't function well. So restless legs is not a neuropathy, it's not a nerve damage, peripheral nerve. It's actually a movement disorder. It's a movement problem. So the thing with restless legs is not so much that the feet are numb. The problem with restless legs is that you have an urge to move your legs. So if I were to tap your reflexes with a hammer and you have a neuropathy, your reflexes would be slow or absent. If I tap your reflexes with restless legs, your reflexes are completely normal. What's happening is that you have the sensation, this weird feeling to move your legs. It's hard to describe. So it's a very different thing. It runs in families. But the nerve itself is not damaged. It's actually, we think of as an iron disease.
But if you have neuropathy and you're focusing on it, you cannot fall asleep.
Sure. Yes. So yeah, well, anything that causes pain will disturb your sleep. Chronic pain things, arthritis. As people get older, the ability to sleep doesn't decrease. It's the need for sleep doesn't change. It's the ability to sleep. So you're right. Any neuropathy will bother you, but it's a different sensation. So if I have a neuropathy, some of the medications, by the way, are the same. Somebody may use something called gabapentin in both conditions. But for the most part, restless legs is thought to be a different situation. It's this urge to move, you get up and walk around. A neuropathy can bother you throughout the night. It's very different. Restless leg syndrome has this quirky thing that only bothers people in the evening, goes away in the morning. Neuropathy is there all the time.
What do you do about that?
But the restless legs or the neuropathy? Well, if you have a neuropathy, then a neurologist has to find out the cause of it. Is it on a metabolic basis? Is it congenital? It depends on the cause of neuropathy. And so a neurologist would work on that for you. Sometimes they'll give people things like Lyrica and things like that to help with it. If it's on a metabolic basis, they want to change what it is. Like say, people who have bad kidneys will have neuropathies also. You got to get dialysis. There's a range of things you have to get to it. But some people are just born with neuropathies. It's really, really, really unpleasant. Sir?
Your ability to remember your dreams, or do you dream at all, or you're aware of, is that some indication of whether you're sleeping well or not? And for me, I never dream in any color at all. It's just black and white. Is that unusual?
So the ability to remember your dreams does not reflect, it's not a clear indication one way or the other. If somebody has mild sleep apnea, which is this trouble breathing, when it's mild, it kicks in when you are dreaming, because that's when the muscles are most relaxed. So people with sleep apnea may have lots of dreaming, a lot of choking dreams, drowning dreams, being buried alive dreams, very unpleasant dreams because they're choking. But when the sleep apnea gets worse, it's like bad transmission. They can't even get to that stage of sleep. And they don't even dream at all. So they go, I used to dream a lot, then I stopped. It could be the sleep apnea. And then when you treat the sleep apnea, all of a sudden they have a flurry of dreams called REM rebound. The idea of dreaming in color versus black and white, Dr. Dement did this experiment a long time ago and says people who report dreaming in black and white, actually that's only what they remember of the dream. we dream for about 2 hours every night, about 2 hours. If you woke up in the morning and told your significant other, hey, honey, let me tell you about my 2 hours worth of dreams I had last night. You talked to that person for 2 hours. And after you finish telling her about your 2 hours of sleep, she goes, it's my turn. You know, my 2 hours of sleep. And then your kid goes, hey, I got 2 hours too to tell you about. So it seems that they're meant to be forgotten to an extent. Dwelling on them may be an issue. And there's actually some people think that they're supposed to get rid of the information. But the black and whiteness, when they actually woke people up who said they didn't sleep, dream, or didn't dream only in black and white, when they actually woke them up experimentally, they turned out to have color dreams. And I think in part, you don't hear that question that much anymore about black and white versus color anymore. In part, I think it's because they reflect what you see. So we had lots of black and white TVs. So you'd have dreams about the shows in black and white. Now you have more color. It might be an issue in that. But I bet you there's colors in your dreams, sir. I bet there really are. Probably one more question if we have time. Claire? What'd you pick the last person? Please pick Claire. Pick Claire. No? Okay, somebody who hasn't asked any questions. No, see, he has 2 hands up. You have 1 hand. What's your question? You're the youngest one, I think, asking.
What is the optimal time to go to sleep, and how does that affect the sleep stage distribution?
So the optimum thing is to wake up feeling refreshed. So first question is, do you wake up alert or not? So don't think about your bedtime. Think about your wake-up time. Once you know your wake-up time to feel refreshed, then you work your way backwards. And if you're a young person, give yourself about 8.5 hours in bed. If you're a little younger, a little older, maybe 7.5. People in my age group, maybe 6.5 is about to be okay for the most part. It'll fluctuate within ourselves. But don't think of it as your bedtime first. Think about your wake-up time and work your way backwards from there. Thank you for listening, guys.